So welcome everybody to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio, and today is Wednesday, June the 12th, 2024, and our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us, and we'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And I see Susan's hand just went up. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on our microphone while we wait for Michael to dial in. How are you doing, young lady? I hear you had a good session this morning in your support group.
Oh, it was great. Yeah. How are you doing with your arm?
Well, actually, I did another acupuncture treatment yesterday, needles, and I know.
You posted that. You put it on Facebook. Wasn't that the one?
Yeah. Yes.
That looked scary.
Yeah, they had about 30 needles in it, and they actually, there's a acupuncture point on the side of your knee that goes to your shoulder, so I also had them down in my knee. But I told Michael I can actually lift my arm about 5 inches away from my body now, which I wasn't able to do, so that is definitely an improvement.
Whoa,
so,
how'd you sleep last night?
A little better. I was expecting it to be worse because he told me after the treatment yesterday, he said, you'll probably hate me tonight. And because what it does is when they hook the electrical, well, when they put the needle in and they twist it, you can feel the muscle jump. And if they hit a muscle that's really, uptight and everything, then it jumps quite a bit. And so those are the ones that he hooks the electricity to. And so it's kind of sitting there, zapping it for 30 minutes, and so the muscles, it just kind of jerks and jumps for the 30 minutes. It finally gives up and relaxes, but that's kind of like working out, so he figured, that it was probably going to be sore for me last night, but it wasn't as bad. I've been using arnica cream, and then we've still been using the meditation exercises, okay, what's the sensation like, and that seems to help, to just relax it and go into just being with it instead of tensing up and fighting it as, this is pain. So that definitely
was the
helped.
Treatment itself painful?
Is what?
Was the treatment itself painful?
Not really. It you can feel the muscles and things jerking in your shoulder and in your arm, but it's just like a small jerk, and it's not really painful. It's just it's hard to describe. Have you ever used those little TENS things, like where you can put a patch on and it's hooked up to a small charge, and so it kind of buzzes and stimulates the muscle? Oh, you haven't used those either?
No, I don't think I'd be allowed to because I have a pacemaker. I don't know if that would mess around with it.
Yeah, it could. I hadn't thought of that. But
I haven't needed it, so.
But I said I feel like that's, being able to move it, even though that's just a little bit away from my body, it's still better than it has been. So.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I'll take the little blessings.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's good. Michael said his feet are getting better.
Yeah, he's actually been walking around yesterday and today without crutches, so he's moving on the other side. Yeah.
Good. Okay, well, is Michael on? I mean, I don't really have anything to say. I just wanted to check up on you.
He is on. Welcome, Michael.
Well, actually,
I am on, and that was a fun session.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. Everybody was just riveted. I think my friend John, the older man, who has such pain that he has to get up and walk around and arrange himself, and he's been having a hard time, but he was very interested.
Well, we'll hold the space that things move for him.
Yeah, I hope so too. He's pretty fragile. You saw how thin he is too. He's just very fragile, very fragile. He's very tall. He was an Olympic basketball player.
Oh yeah.
So having to sit and not being able to move is not easy for him. He was a swift, high-jumping man for a long time.
Yeah, I bet that's it's quite a challenge. We'll just keep extending a blessing in his direction.
Oh, thanks. Yep.
I didn't get into the idea of the avicen, but that might be, if he's got no other avenue of approach for handling it, that might be a place for him to go
Maybe Jenna
to.
could lend her. That's a thought. Jenna still has mine. She could lend it to him. He is living on, Social Security only. He's living very, very, very simply. So I know he wouldn't be able to buy one, but maybe we could get. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. He might be very interested
to him, at
in
least
that
temporarily.
Too. Yeah.
Because a lot of that type of thing is based in inflammation, and if you can get past the inflammation, then it gives the body a chance to heal. Some things like turmeric and such might be helpful.
He's very much of those minds too. He's very careful about what he eats, very aware of stuff. He's a naturopath himself, just by personal practice.
Right.
So, but thanks an awful lot for spending all that time on that meeting.
Oh, I was delighted. That was fun.
Great. Yeah.
I don't know whether you've ever heard me say this before, but the fellow who used to set my workshops up, travel workshops, his favorite tagline for me was that if I had the chance, I'd do a workshop in a phone booth. And it's true. If there's a set of ears, you never know which set of ears are going to be critical mass. So, hey, every mind, heart, and being on the planet, that's what it's all about.
Right. Well, you looked very trim, too. You must have had a hairdo and a beard do. You look very spiffy.
Oh, really? Well, thank you. I did get my hair cut recently. I've been doing, since I've stopped traveling, I've been kind of being a bit of a shaggy dog. But I did get my hair cut recently.
Oh, looks good.
Thank you. Well, anything exciting happening in your world that we didn't talk about on the Mind Shifter support group?
Oh, sure. And I do have a question for you, and then you can get to work with your planned program.
Well, you are my planned program. So.
Okay. Our guy Michael is still living with us, and we have 5 applications in for Section 8 HUD housing for him. And his name came up for one of the facilities. And, I'm leaving it pretty much up to him to finish filling out stuff, and nothing is happening. And I finally said, what's happening? Because they have a room in Jacksonville, Florida, and it's near a grocery store and a little park. And he told me that he doesn't want to do it because of, and he has a lot of reasons. And they're all reasons that are, of course, he wants what he wants, and yet he isn't fully admitting that he has to take what he can get, whatever is available. And he doesn't want to be anything above a first floor because he has bad knees and he's afraid of elevators. So that puts him on a first floor. Well, they don't have a first floor room. So he would have to use the elevator, and he gets a panic attack. Also, the grocery store he goes to, he's on the autism spectrum, and one of the symptoms, manifestations of his autism is that he eats in a very picky way. He doesn't eat well necessarily, but he can only eat certain things. And most grocery stores don't carry what he wants, and he has food stamps, which limits him even more, because food stamps won't cover everything. So there's that. Yeah. And so, I've put it in his hands. I've been doing wake-up sheets. Michael, this has been the lesson of my life, because I heard you when you said, I created this situation. I created this. What is happening here? he finally said, what I really need is a van. I need to be on the road. I need to be driving to gigs, and I have a little dog. If I should need a veterinarian, I need to be able to get to the veterinarian. And I said, Michael, well, you've been here for a year and a half, so you must have saved some money toward a van. And he said, well, I've saved $1,000. And I was thinking, a year and a half, $1,000, rent-free, food basically free, no costs at all, but he does buy a lot on the internet. So, of course, I'm doing wake-up sheets about this. I'm saying, what the fuck, you know? What are you doing?
Well, this is getting to the root of things.
I know. So I'm saying, and it's synchronicity up the kazoo, because Dr. Tim has been reading about the Way of Mastery, reading in the Way of Mastery and the Yeshua letters, all having to do with taking things just as they are, allowing, observing, going with the flow of life. And I'm pretty good, Michael. I'm very proud of the progress, but it's definitely, I get breath slowing down, and I have my culture and ingrained thoughts about how you don't do this and you do that. And my sister is very much like Michael, and so I'm having a good close look at my relationship with my sister, which has gone on since I was 2.5. And so my point here is, it doesn't look as if anything's going to happen in any direction unless Tim Bingham buys him a van, which he's not going to do. He's just not going to do it. So I'm watching this and I'm thinking, what you have to do in a situation like that is to not know and to be able to endure or bear or put up with, those are bad words. I'm watching the words. To maybe the better word would be welcome uncertainty and limbo, maybe forever, until I croak. I don't know if this is a question or just an observation.
Right. Well, from everything that you said and what I know of in conversations with Michael, I suspect that it's not likely the universe will ever come up with the perfect set of circumstances where he leaps and says, oh boy, I'm on it. Which means that if I were in your shoes right now, I'd be saying, Michael, this is something we've worked for. The opportunity's there. It's time to take it. That's all. Because the opportunity is there. Should something happen, cancel the thought, you and Tim, it's not likely that it's going to be there if he's forced to do it. So my take, what I'd take this as an opportunity to, yes, accept the circumstances and speak up as a conscious creator and inform him that this is something we've worked for. There's an opportunity there. That's right, it's not ideal, but chances are it's never going to be ideal. But what you're going to do is you're going to take this, and then you're going to look for your ideal. You're going to move to the next level, but it's time to make the move. That would be my take, gently, lovingly. Because, I mean, he's got so many conditions that the conditions are never going to be met. So he will be there till the cows come home with you, if you allow it, which, it might be appropriate for you to allow it. Other than that, my take would be it's time to say the opportunity is there. This is it. If from here you can create a better circumstance, great. And if not, then you've got a place that satisfies your needs. Not perfectly, but then perfectly is probably never going to happen for him. Because I suspect if he had a list of 100 things and a place came along and that fit all 100 things, he would find 101, oh, this doesn't work. Oh, if only we had this, then we could.
Yeah.
Well, that Michael, would be my take. I think you've been abundantly generous with him and caring and supportive. I mean, when I think about, especially, with Jeannie with her arm and some of the symptoms I've been through with my feet the last couple of weeks, it's like I can't imagine somebody homeless, how they live, how do you handle it? I'm like, I'm so thankful.
I know.
We have a home and we have food,
I know.
And
I think of that.
So
I do.
Yeah.
Because in his way, he's lame. He's emotionally not strong. He has panic attacks over the littlest thing. To me, they're little.
Right.
To him, they're not.
Yep.
And
right.
My heart goes out to him, and I see him in this pain. And you said something which puts a whole other dimension onto this. You said, well, maybe it's appropriate for him, or if it's appropriate for him to stay with you. Well, it is possible for him to stay with us. Is it appropriate? I've got to find that out. It's my cultural stuff that tells me that it's not appropriate. But actually, is it possible? Yes, it's possible. He's really not much trouble at all. In fact, the trouble is in my anticipation. He had a sick dog. $1,000 was spent on that dog, and it wasn't his money because his dog was sick, and that it was just obvious the dog needs to be taken care of. And he has 2 bad knees, a bad back, and a bad arm. He can hardly get up the stairs from the basement apartment where he's living. And I think, I'm just thinking it's possible for him to stay here, but I anticipate more trouble, more expense, more trips to the emergency room. And I don't want to do it, Michael. I don't want to do it.
And I think you have a right to speak up and say, the opportunity's here, and I want to be complete with this. So fill in the paperwork and get ready to go. That would be my take.
Okay.
My sense from our conversations, my sense is you've extended huge generosity, and you've extended it beyond your limit because you're willing and you're doing your work. And I don't think that ethical behavior requires that you go above and beyond that. I think you've gone plenty far. And again, the ideal circumstance where he goes hooray about everything will probably never show up. And therefore, I think the fact that you've extended as far as you have and you have hit your limit, yes, could you stretch and go further? But then, if he has a health crisis next week, who's on the hook for it?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you paid $1,000 out for his dog?
Yeah.
I'd say that's pretty generous. And he has an opportunity to care for himself with the resources that he has. I think you've gone way and above beyond the call of duty. And if I were you, I'd be calling it.
Well, I might call the place then because he's not telling me what they are telling him. He says things like, well, they need more paperwork. Well, I'm not sure that's right. So I have the number of the facility. I could call them, but I haven't wanted to be like his mother, He's 68, almost 69 years old. But maybe I have to do that. I asked.
Sounds like it's time for him to step up to the plate.
I asked Jesus weeks ago.
Go ahead.
I said to Jesus, what would you do? And he said, well, I never had a house. He didn't want to answer. Yeah. Okay, Michael, that's a great answer. Thank you.
If Yeshua said, when did you do this? If they said to Yeshua, when did you do this to me? And he said, when you did it to one of the least of these, you've done it way above and beyond the call. Would be my take.
Well,
and I think for your own psychological well-being and your own security, my take is it's time to say this is your opportunity and it's time to go.
Okay.
And if he goes to Florida and finds a way to get a van, or, whatever. It sounds like if you hadn't come up with in essence, you've given him the $1,000 that he's now got saved for a van. If he hadn't been with you, the dog would have to have been put down.
Yeah, that's true. Or not. I mean, the dog might have gotten well on his own.
But I'd stand with you to stand up and say, okay, we said we'd go so far, and this is as far as we're willing to go. So what we need to do to get you to Florida?
Yeah.
My take.
Wake up sheets on being the bad guy and stuff. Ooh.
Dear heart, dear heart, dear heart. That's an old power person message that you're the bad guy. I mean, you have given so much to him in physical, mental, emotional, financial security and support. I'd support you doing some worksheets on this power person message that somehow you become the bad guy because you call him to be responsible for his life after everything you've given. In no way, shape, or form, if you called it for him and you're going there, could I fathom calling you the bad guy.
No, I know you wouldn't. I know it's just in there.
A reality in your mind.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate.
Well, I'll support you for giving that
support.
one. Maybe that's why he's still there, so you can let go and be free of that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at the energy that you've extended toward your grandsons, toward your son, toward him, and to even fathom yourself, quote unquote, bad guy that's got to be a power
Michael,
person voice coming through your head.
You'd be proud of me because I did have another situation with a family in Mississippi that we've supported monthly for years. We started with their parents, and the parents have died. They died in their 40s, and they left 2 daughters, and the daughters started asking us for money. And one of the daughters just asked me to help her with her mortgage, which is $140,000 or something. And I wrote back and I said, you know, when we started this project, we were giving money as part of a box project to your parents. And we would send a box with like sheets or something you needed, maybe some food. And it developed into this thing where we were sending money every month. And then we were sending money more than every month. And now you girls have grown up and you've needed help with phone bills or this and that, and we've been helping out here and there, and it's not large amounts. But I said, I want to stop this now. This wasn't part of the deal, and we've never met you, and when I ask you questions, you don't answer them. This is a woman now with her own kids and a grandchild, and she mentions in Facebook she has a husband, but she's never mentioned him. I don't think he's there or helping. She works very hard. She has health problems. I'm really saying no to a woman who needs help. But I did say no, and I've been awake at night, but I did it, Michael. I said, we just can't do this anymore. And that was the end of that. So I've done it before. I can do it again. Yep.
Yeah. I think generational welfare is not a good thing. I think people who need a helping hand, it's awesome to be able to give them a helping hand. And if people aren't willing to do something toward their own standing up, and definitely the culture could do some renovating from the ground up on how we deal with money. But that sounds reasonable to me.
She's making minimum wage. She has reasons, but she has a house. And her sister lives in the parental home, and I said, can you combine forces? And she says, no, we have our separate lives. That was the thing that cut it off. I thought, you're coming to us and you've never met, rather than throwing in with your sister and making it work. That's not good.
Right.
So anyway, somehow I felt clearer about that than this one. But anyway, Michael, you're very helpful. You've got a radio show to do. Thank you so much for talking to me about that.
All right, dear heart, we cherish you.
Okay.
Again, that was fun today. The support group was awesome.
It was. Yep, everybody was riveted, and you spoke very well. And your summary of your paper was very good, too. Yeah.
All right, blessings.
Thanks.
All right, Miss Jeannie, we're almost to the halfway part, not quite, but do we have any questions in the chat room? Any questions in email? Anybody in the phone queue with a hand up?
No questions in the chat room. Nobody's hand is up. I did get a text from someone, and I'm going to be working with them later, but perhaps we can kind of address part of it. Let me go back to the beginning. So he's got a lot of family drama and trauma that's gone on for all of his life. He said that the family's been abusive to him, and I'm hoping that he's listening. He's actually in Australia, and that he cut off all ties with them, even to the point that he took his wife's name, and to give him some brief guidance on, but if you don't deal with what's inside of you, even though you've cut ties with your family, you're going to draw in somebody else, whether it's family, friends, coworkers, or whatever, to bring it up for you,
right,
to give you the opportunity to heal it. And, I don't know if you've got any other advice on that. He's gotten into a depression where he said that, sometimes he just curls up in bed and doesn't want to get out and just cries.
No. Well, my best take on anger is that depression is that anger turned inward. And so I'd suggest whatever you've cut your family off, whatever the issues are that you haven't resolved inside yourself around family would be the place to start, looking at thought disorders, remembering that anger is not an emotion, it's a drug, it's an anesthetic. And spending hours sleeping is just another way of anesthetizing, not facing. So it sounds like you're maybe heading in a downward direction in terms of shutting down what you don't want to look at. My take would be to go in the opposite direction, and I'm going to start looking here. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to step in and do some actual work on this. If I do my work and I come to a point of achievement with it, and then I quit, the tendency is that whatever I haven't dealt with is going to tend to build up. Especially, it's kind of like once I start doing the work, once I hit that new level of awareness and vitality, it's almost like the universe has a different level of demand or requirement. And so my take would be dig out the pen and the paper and go to work. Look at, if there are all these tears, then, the anger, if I'm accurate, and that may not be, that's really a question, but it's pretty much the way the pattern goes. If there's anger that now has turned to grief, then you want to start unwinding and moving back through the thought disorders. What is this sadness? What are the tears about? Is it loss? Is it loss of family? Is it loss of dream? Is it loss of, the way it could have been, or the way I wanted it to be, or the way I thought it was going to be? Then to start working backward through those feelings of loss. And what is there that you're avoiding? What's the avoidance? And begin to work through those things. Once you put your hand to the plow, that's something what does that say in the scriptures? Once you put your hand to the plow, there's crazy glue on the handle. You can't take your hand off of it. And once you start to open up, then things are going to open. So my take would be just dig in, pick up the tools. It doesn't mean you have to get through it all yesterday. Just give yourself the space, give yourself the time, and step back into your work. That'd be my highest thought.
Awesome. And we did have a hand.
And we'll be holding the space. Great. Let's go for it.
This is a voice from our past, 917. Camille, hi.
Well,
hi,
young lady, it's been a long time.
It's a celebration to hear both of your voices so much. Yes,
well, delighted to hear from you.
Thank you. The feeling is highly mutual. I have been very happy, and one thing after another happens, and I just, welcome it into my life. But one thing I think I want to focus on, I could spend a long time, catching up with you from the last time we've seen each other. But they've all been highlights, and they've all been good. But the one thing is this relationship I have with Medicare.
You mean they're giving you opportunities to learn forgiveness?
absolutely. Well said. Very well said. The thing I'm having to forgive are second opinions, because apparently when they conflict, you have to go for a third. And then I just want to be clear. I want to have a better, I guess, relationship with the communication from my own body, so I'm not just depending on someone who doesn't know me and has never met me to tell me what's going on with it.
Right.
I think it was 2 or 2.5 years ago, I had an eye exam, was told that I had cataracts and bordering on macular degeneration and needed immediate surgery. Decided to go for a second opinion, where the doctor said, "Oh, you after all the exams I went through the first time," she said, "Oh, you have healthy eyes." I said, "It's wonderful," and of course they always add for your age. So not knowing that I'm an eternal being, so I just didn't do any surgery, didn't do anything, and I can see to drive at night. I'm one of my only friends who can drive at night or drive in the rain, and I feel completely confident with my driving, and I can read except for reading glasses, so I just give myself an okay. But then,
sounds good to me. If it's working, go for it.
It feels good to me, but what doesn't seem to be working is I had, about the same time, 2.5 years ago, I had just an attack of, I hate to say it, diarrhea that went on for almost 3 weeks. I mean, I had to stay in bed. And my dear son attended to me so beautifully. It was just a wonderful experience for all its negative aspects.
All things considered?
Yes, and so I had a sigmoidoscopy at the time, and the doctor said, I even spoke to you after this. He said, it's pancreatic enzyme deficiency, and you gave me the enzymes you take, and then I took those for about 2 or 3 months, and when everything regulated itself, I stopped taking them. So the weight gain came back. I have not been able to achieve what I consider an ideal weight for my body, and it's all located. I look like a pregnant 84-year-old, which is not good. But I went for another diagnosis, and this doctor tells me that he doesn't think the first diagnosis was right at all. He thinks it's a thyroid problem. So he's put me on some thyroid supplements, and it's just confusing to me to think that I'm on track with one thing, but then another doctor tells me another thing.
Well, picking a physician, someone you can really trust, is quite a challenge. And if you remember that the base meaning of the word diagnosis, a dyad is 2, an agnostic is someone who doesn't know. And if you go if you go to 10 different diagnosticians, you'll probably get at least 5 different diagnoses.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, for me personally, I think that ultimately we each need to be our own primary healthcare provider, so we know enough about our own bodies to at least know who to go to and who to trust when they're giving us advice and input. And I
agree. Yeah.
That's a challenge in this culture.
Oh, yes. Well, I think I've told you, I was told when I was 10 years old by my pharmacist father that doctors were educated guessers. And I'm wondering if I need to do a forgiveness worksheet on that advice.
Well, it sounds like it couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I ultimately think that we each need to know enough about our bodies to be our own primary health care providers and educate ourselves.
Well, I did it for at least 60 years. I mean, until I got my Medicare card, I didn't have a primary physician. I did have doctors when I was pregnant who delivered my children, which were healthy pregnancies and healthy children. But after that, I haven't seen doctors at all until Medicare requires you to have a primary physician. And now with this latest thing, they're affiliated with Cleveland Clinic, so you don't just see a primary physician, they send you to a dozen specialists. And I don't think I like the setup.
Well, I can relate to that. I hear you loud and clear.
Mhm.
You know, if you go along with the opening words in the book of John that don't say in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh, but rather in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh.
Right.
Then beware the mind energy that you engage in. And the more my experience has been, the more people who study disease and whose business is disease, then the more mind energy there is about disease, and the more search there is for a reason to charge a fee.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember you saying that when they're looking for a problem or a disease, they'll find it. So that's what I've been working on, just trusting my own instincts as far as my health is concerned. And I'm still working on a financial, self-sustaining myself financially. Interestingly, people around me have, well, my son and my latest companion of the last 2 years contribute more to my life than financially than I do, and continue to be grateful, but don't understand the reason I haven't provided, sufficient income for myself.
Well, sadly, we live in a culture who, to a great degree, being a female, the deck's stacked against you financially.
It feels
it's
like
unfortunate,
it.
but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's most unfortunate. I think I don't remember the latest numbers. It seems to me not too long ago I read something in the realm of, a woman on average earns something like either 82 or 86 cents to every dollar that a man earns, and so it is a stacked deck. And thank God that you've attracted this support, that you've been the kind of mother and support of your son, that he's there for you, and that you have a companion that also supports you.
Yeah, very true. I certainly have a lot to be grateful for. But I just had
having a human life is pretty cool, isn't it? Just that is pretty awesome.
It's wonderful. I have friends both in the Jewish and the Southern Baptist community who tell me how wicked the world is. And I'm sure we can find evidence for that. But somehow it is not anywhere near my circle of activity and peace, love, and joy.
Well, you've been doing your work for a long time, and you obviously have created what you deserve in the way of support and health and well-being, and we'll hold the space. It continues.
Yes, indeed.
And yes, it might be good to do some worksheets around those messages from Dad. See what they uncover. It sounds like your intuition's telling you that.
Yeah, just came to me during this conversation, so thanks for the gift. I don't know how many years, let me think. Well, since 2017, I've been working with Tracy Gibson and Nancy Dock. Almost every Monday night, we go for periods where they're traveling or I'm traveling, and we miss a few weeks, but we get back on track and just work together this last Monday night on our forgiveness worksheets, and they're just incredible tools.
Sweet. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Glad that it's supporting you.
You're the best in that department.
And them. Delighted that all the work that went into developing that worksheet over the last 50 years, that it's paying off.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. And it's wonderful to hear you and Jeannie's voices. And you sound healthy and happy, and I just know that will continue.
We're rocking along. Yay.
Really? And how's that little Ari? Remind me of her name.
Aria Rain. She is just awesome.
How old is she now?
She is just awesome. She's 5. She'll be 6 in August.
Oh my gosh! Is she going to preschool or school, or going to be?
She goes into 1st grade in September.
Oh,
and she was telling us the other day that, she knows she's got some things she needs to do because now she's going into the part of the school that has real grades. She was in pre-K and then K this last year, but now she's going into the part of the school that has real grades, which I thought was kind of a cute construct for her mind to come up with.
Wonderful, really. Well, it's always a challenge. I have a lot of concern about public schooling, but I know that the social aspect of it is very important for our children.
We're blessed that she's going to a private Catholic school. And,
wow.
Yeah, so it's really great. And her little brother is due the end of August or the 1st of September, so we're starting over.
Oh, that's wonderful. So much fun. My only grandchild is now 21.
Oh, wow. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, so beautiful and such an innocent spirit. It's just amazing, really amazing. But something I anticipated in my life.
She was actually on the show yesterday. She was offering a solution for pain.
Oh, I'm going to pull it up and listen to it because I have a companion who suffers a lot of pain. He says it's arthritis. I say it's inflammation. We go that route.
Well, I'll send you an email with some links in it. It might be helpful.
Yeah, cool. And I'll listen to Aria Rain's advice.
Sweet. Awesome, young lady, while holding a blessing.
Thank you, and abundant blessings are returning to you, too.
All right,
take
care.
Good to hear you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, Miss Jeannie, we've got about 18 or so minutes left. If somebody puts a hand up, we'll get into another piece of the puzzle. If you're out there in listener land and you have to be on one of those stations where we can't see you, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening directly to the show. And then, if you push 1, that will raise a hand in the control panel, and we'll know you want to talk to us, and we'll have a conversation. 563-999-3581. So, Ms. Jeannie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up?
It is all quiet on this end.
Well, then, let's take another look. Go ahead.
I was just going to put out a great big thank you to both Sean and Andre. They have really been going to town on converting old shows into MP4 so I can upload them to YouTube. However, I've been out of commission for about 2 weeks and with my arm, so I am behind on catching up with them. But they are doing a fabulous job doing the conversions.
So that means that more and more of our shows, and in particular our special shows, are now on YouTube to be listened to. They're in a video format now. Of course, it's just an audio track, but there's a picture. And they've been converted. So thank you to you two both. That's awesome how that's coming together and expanding our YouTube repertoire of videos.
So
563-999-3581. Push 1. Well, let's move forward then. Let's take a look at the next set of passages from the Kabbalists. We're into Matthew chapter 9, 1 to 38, and this conversation starts out with him getting aboard a boat and crossing over. They brought him a paralytic while still in bed, and Yeshua saw the faith that this paralytic had and said to him, "Have heart, son, your sins are forgiven." And unfortunately, even the English translation here in the manuscript does not capture what is actually being spoken of there. It is not. We're not implying, and I'm realizing that with some of the latest insights into the Aramaic, that perhaps we're going to have to go back and do another rewrite of some of this, because this implies, at least to us in the Western world, that, you've been let off the hook for something. And this is not the idea in the Aramaic language. In fact, let's look at the word forgiven. S-C-H-B-E-G, shabag. So let's take a look at shabag. So if you want to go back to the dictionary, and let's see, let's see here, we're on. So if we look on page, put the middle of page 94, shabagnin, it refers back to the word shabag. And the word shabag is a verb, which means to cancel, forgive, or leave. So in essence, putting it in the context of the first century Aramaic language, as opposed to the brain cells most of us have, of your sins have been forgiven, you've been let off the hook for this. What is being used here is a verb that says that you have left, you have been alleviated of this energy. Remember that sin is an archery term in Aramaic that simply means off the mark. So when one thinks in terms of, it's like we've been conned into this thing of, well, you did something terrible, but some authority somewhere in the sky is going to let you off the hook for that. And that is just absolute zero meaning. That has no meaning whatsoever in the context of the Aramaic language. But rather, what he's saying is, so you've been in a space where you've been open and therefore willing to have alleviated this energetic pattern that has created your disease. And so being freed of your disease, being alleviated, having left it behind, you're finished with not only the energy of the error, again, the word sin simply means off the mark, it has to do with error, but rather you're freed of the presence of that error, and therefore the correlating physiological, mental, emotional expression of that disease. In this particular case, it's a paralytic. So the men from the scribes and the Pharisees say among themselves, this person blasphemes. And why would that be called blasphemous? Because in that context, in that belief system, remember that there's this whole Old Testament that unfolds that is men swimming in the notion of their own dastardliness, their own hostility and fear, their own blame, are trying to figure out a creator called love. And instead of recognizing that the home of that energy is within them, they've placed it outside of themselves. So now they've placed outside of themselves a power that's supposed to approve, disapprove. I mean, the whole game is, well, we're trying to please this outer power. No, we're working to undo the blocks to the awareness that that power is within us. And Yeshua comes and brings a whole correction. And he's not talking about some sort of external power out there. He's saying the Father within me is where the power lies. That's where the work is done. So making a shift from this whole projection of something outside of us, the error of that, which is very well expressed in the Old Testament, Yeshua comes and brings correction. He speaks not of something that belongs to him, like he specially speaks of our Father, the Creator that resides within us all. And so the external world's like, well, here's this blasphemer. Yeshua says he knew their inner thoughts. He was able to tap into what they were doing, what they were thinking. And he said to them, why do you cause yourselves to think evil thoughts in your minds? It's like, why are you, and remember the sin, archery term, fire at the target, miss the target, the scorekeeper yells, sin, you're off the mark. You missed the target. Or you missed the bullseye, actually. Sin, evil, then, follows up, and it is a correlating concept. And if you fired at the target and you missed the target altogether, not just miss the bullseye, as in sin, but miss the target altogether, then it's evil. And so he's saying to them, your minds are so far off base. And so he turns to them, he says, well, what's easier to do? Your sins are forgiven, or arise and walk. He's saying they're one in the same. If you've opened the space where you've left the offending, disease-causing energy behind, then the disease disappears. And so they're both the same statement. And then he goes on to say, but so that you will know that there is authority in the Son of Man, in other words, you being the Son of Man, you being in the same category. It's interesting in the Greek translations, it talks about Yeshua being the only begotten. And in Aramaic, it doesn't speak of the only begotten, it speaks of the first begotten. So here's the one who's awakened to, oh, we have a Father, the Father's within us, and we have a relationship. And the relationship is one of being able to ask and receive. And you go back to another place in the Scriptures, and the Scriptures are saying, the Creator is saying to us, of the works of my hands. So there's nothing that isn't the works of the Creator. Of the works of my hands command ye me. Tell me what you want. So he's saying, we have the authority to shabag, to undo, to remove these energetic patterns. Can I bring the presence of love to the hidden unconscious energy that needs to be forgiven here, then therefore allow its release? So then Yeshua says to the man, arise, take your bed, and go to your house. And he arose and did that. When the crowd saw this, they gave praises to the Creator, who gave authority such as this unto men. Not unto a man, but we can untie that which we have locked into our carbon-based memory systems. If we're trapped in perception, which is a projection of what's in our carbon-based memory systems, then it can become like a twisted game to get out of those constructs of the mind. That's why the forgiveness tool is so important. So it goes on in chapter 9, or in verse 9. When Yeshua left there, he saw a man sitting in the house of publicans, whose name was Matthew, and he said, "Come, follow me." And he did that. And while he was eating in the house, publicans and many of those who engaged in energies that are off the mark came and sat with Yeshua and his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw it, they saw his disciples, "Why does your master eat with those quote-unquote sinners, those who we don't approve of?" And we heard you said, "The sound have no need for a physician, only those possessed of infirmities." Now, I suspect he could have easily been saying to them, "You need this as much as they do, but your righteousness wouldn't allow you to receive it." But I'm going where I'm going to be with those who, it's almost like there was a caste system. In India, there's this caste system of untouchables. And the haughty of the culture, we wouldn't even lay a finger on that person. Yeshua was saying, that's where I'm going, where the healing is needed. Go and learn the wise. It is merciful. I desire. So here's the Creator. It is mercy. I desire no sacrifice, for I came not to call unto the body, but unto those trapped in error, rather than those stuck in carbon-based memory or those who thought they were above it all. Because I'm here to bring the energy to those where there is error already. So then a disciple of John comes to me and says, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast often, and your disciples do not?" And Yeshua said, at this point, you'll remember there's another passage where he's told his disciples that there are some kind of energetic patterns that do not come out easily, and that in fact what's needed is the active presence of love and fasting. But in this case, he knows what's coming. He knows that he's only got a certain time period here. And so he's offering that, here we are. I'm here now, and I've invited those to partake of the feast of truth that I'm giving them. And while they're with me, it's appropriate that they drink deeply of what I'm offering them. And he uses a metaphor of how can the wedding guests fast? Well, they've got bridegrooms with them. There comes a day when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and then they can fast. And he goes into several metaphors for renewing that which has been lost or destroyed. So one of them is, no one puts a new patch on a worn-out coat lest it tear out the coat and the hole become greater. Nor does one put new wine in old wineskins, lest they burst the skins, and the wine spill and the skins be ruined. But one puts new wine in new wineskins, which protect both. He's saying that, the wineskins he's speaking of is the constructs of our minds. And to try and, a lot of people are trying without the tool of forgiveness, without removal of the old, are trying to put something new in, and the overlay just doesn't work. It just doesn't make sense. So he's saying that there's a renewal that needs to be done, and that his work is about the renewal, and he's there teaching these disciples how to renew their minds. And that one of the core steps in the process is, rather than trying to force new beliefs into a mind filled with old errant beliefs, you first clean up the old errant mind to make space for the new. And we're down to the last 30 seconds or so, so I'm just going to say thank you, everybody, for joining us, and hope your day is blessed and that you have the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings.